Hey everyone, my name is Blake Cadwell. I'm the co-founder at Soundly.com, and in this video, we're going to walk through our hearing test. We'll talk about how to read the results, how to understand if you're a fit for over-the-counter hearing aids or if you need prescription hearing aids. We'll also talk through some of the most common hearing loss configurations, so you can see where you stack up compared to the average population, and if you have a specific shape of your hearing loss, what you might do about that. So let's dig in. What you're seeing here on the screen is our hearing test here at Soundly.com. So if you simply go to Soundly.com, and you click hearing test, you're gonna end up on a screen something like this. You'll say start test. You'll take a second to answer a few questions about your hearing health. These are primarily targeted at understanding if there are any red flag issues that might mean that you need to go see a doctor right away. Assuming you say no to all of these, we'll get started with the test. It's going to ask you if you're in a quiet room. You can indicate yes if that's true. It's also going to ask you if you're wearing headphones. That's because we do recommend that you wear headphones. So you can wear AirPods, over-ear headphones, really any headphones you have in your home or you use for your laptop. The reason for this is that we're going to be sending sound into your right ear and into your left ear separately. The only real way to test that is through headphones versus playing out the sound through your speakers. So I'll say I am wearing headphones. Now we'll get to the calibration phase. So what you should do here is you should take your headphones out. You should rub your hands quickly in front of your face, put your headphones back in, and you're going to play the calibration track. You should hear a very similar sound. It should sound like the sound of two hands rubbing together. Try to match that to the volume of the sound of your hands rubbing in front of your face. Although this is a low-tech method, it is a method that has worked for a lot of people in calibrating headphones across different brands and styles. Ultimately, it'll help your hearing test be a little bit more accurate. Now we'll start the hearing test itself. You're going to go through two different screens, one that tests your left ear and one that tests your right ear. You'll also be testing a number of different frequencies. So each line represents a frequency. You'll tap that plus sign until you can just barely hear the sound coming through your headphones. Then you'll move on to the next one. You can also drag the dot right and left. If you want to move more quickly, hit the plus or the minus, either one will work just fine. Ultimately, you'll want to place each of these bubbles just at where you can barely hear the sound coming in through the left side. I'll just move these quickly so you can get a sense for it. When we get to the next ear, again, we'll go through the same process. You'll find that space that's just barely audible, and then you'll click next. Now you'll see your results, and your results are going to look something like this. You're going to see what is a simple audiogram. This is a similar chart to what you would get inside of a hearing clinic. If you've ever been to a hearing clinic, maybe you've seen a chart like this. So let me walk you through what this chart is actually showing you. The chart measures across two different planes. The first is volume, and the second is frequency. So from top to bottom are the faintest sounds you might be able to hear to the loudest sounds you might be able to hear. If you could hear all the way up here, it means you really could hear a pin drop. If you need to go all the way down to the 90 dB, you're going to be closer to a car horn at that particular frequency. Now, as you move right, you're moving from deep, bassy sounds to high-pitched sounds. So think men's voices and deep bass notes in music, perhaps the sound of a low engine rumbling. And then as you move over here, you're talking about children's voices, birds, things like that, very high frequency sounds. Most people's hearing loss as they grow older tends to go out in the highest frequencies first. That is the most common age-related configuration. Now, my actual hearing loss doesn't look quite like this. It's a cookie bite. It goes down in the middle and comes back up at the top. But this hearing chart will ultimately tell you what the shape of your hearing loss is. It'll also tell you the severity of your hearing loss. So you pay attention to what's here on the side, and you're going to take a look to see, are you primarily in the mild, the moderate, or the severe sections of the chart? If you are in the mild or moderate sections, you could be a great candidate for something like telehealth or over-the-counter hearing aids. If you're mostly spending time down in this gray section of the chart, you probably need to go into a local clinic where you can get a prescription level device. That's because prescriptive devices are allowed to put out more sound than options that come through telehealth or over-the-counter channels. So it's an important piece to take a look at as you're deciding which care method to choose and which brands might be available to you. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's take a look at some of the common configurations of hearing loss that you might see in your chart and what we would tend to call these hearing loss types. So we actually have a blog post on Soundly.com, which you can take a look at. We'll drop down into the comments below, and it gives some examples of each of these types of hearing loss. Let me move myself out of the way here. The first and most common is a sloping hearing loss. Now, this particular hearing loss is quite steeply sloped. Most folks will have a softer slope, often if it's an age-related hearing loss, but this is what you'd call a slope. It's higher on the left side and it comes down through the right side. The second is a notch. So a notch is typically where you're going to have a sharp drop and then a return. Often this is related to noise. So if you've had a lot of noise exposure, maybe in manufacturing or a lot of gunfire, this is a common configuration you might see in your hearing loss. A third is less common, and that's a reverse slope. That means you're missing low frequencies, but you're capturing a lot of higher frequencies. The fourth is the cookie bite. This is the hearing loss that I have. Pretty good on the low frequencies. I miss a lot in the middle, and then I'm pretty good on the high frequencies. This is a common configuration for hereditary hearing loss, which is what I have. Number 5 is a unilateral hearing loss. This means you hear really well in one ear, but not so well in the other. And finally, number 6 is an asymmetric loss. This means you have hearing loss on both sides, but the hearing loss is at different levels in your right and left ear. Now you'll remember when we had you take the test, we asked you to put on headphones so we can test your right and your left ear separately. Part of the reason is to detect an asymmetric or unilateral loss. If you see a big difference between your right and left ears and you want to get a second opinion, you can talk to your audiologist, or of course you can reach out to our team. We'll give you a second opinion on whether over-the-counter, prescription, or other options might be a good fit for you. All right, before we end this video, I want to answer what I think might be a common question for folks watching this video, and certainly folks who follow our channel, and that is, am I a good fit for over-the-counter hearing aids? If you've taken a hearing test at soundly.com or you've gotten a test at a local clinic, you might wonder, is that an option for me, or is my hearing loss too severe? Do I actually need to go to a local clinic? So I wanted to show you a couple example charts just to give you a sense for what might be a good fit for over-the-counter and what might not be a good fit for over-the-counter. So this first chart shows a typical sloping hearing loss. Both ears are quite similar. They diverge just a little bit, but mostly they're close together, and they're mostly in that mild and moderate section. Sometimes we'll see folks' lines dip barely into the severe category. We often still see really good results, but in general, we want to see most of the line in the mild and moderate categories. Now, if your hearing test looks something more like this, where you see lots of the line in the severe category, down where we have the yellow line, you probably should go in and see a local doctor. Now, there are a couple of reasons for this. The first is that you will need a prescriptive level device that can output more sound into your ear in order to actually hit those prescriptive targets. Over-the-counter hearing aids are capped in the level of output that they can put forward. That's mostly to keep people safe and make sure people are not damaging their ears if they're purchasing a product over the counter. Makes sense. But for folks who have severe loss, they actually need more sound to hear clearly in various environments. So if you see yourself in this part of the chart, probably need to head to a local clinic. The second reason is that a lot of folks with severe hearing loss also need an ear mold, which is a little custom piece that sits inside your ear that the hearing aid itself attaches to. That prevents feedback and ultimately might help your performance in some of your tougher frequencies. All right, thanks for following along. That's it for now. If you have any questions about our hearing test or hearing tests in general, feel free to drop those questions below. Myself or our lead audiologist will get back to you. Happy to take a look at your hearing test and talk you through some of your options if you have specific questions about your individual case. Thanks and good luck with your research.